Welcome to Paint Pouring with Ron. In today's video we're going to make a really bright multi-flip cup pour. Should be fun. As usual, if you like what you see today, please press the like button, and if you'd like to see more of my videos, please take a moment to subscribe. Thanks. Well, today I'm going to be using a large Montmartre thick edge canvas that measures about 35 centimeters by 71 centimeters. And using the formula I gave you in the last video, that works out to about 980 grams of paint. I know, that's a lot. I'll probably mix up a little more than that just to make sure I'm covering everything properly without having to overstretch. There's nothing worse than not having enough paint when doing a flip cup pour. Now, as usual, I've taped the back of my painting using painter's tape, and I've got some really large push pins to give me some finger space underneath my canvas. Okay, now what paints am I going to use today? As I said, I want a bright painting today. So I'm going to use a couple of Montmartre colours and some Deco Art Extreme Sheen paints. Now white is going to be the major colour in my painting today. So I'm using about 480 grams of white. And then I'm going to use about 180 grams of each of these colours. Montmartre Magenta, Montmartre Purple, and Montmartre Turquoise. Now, to brighten everything up, I'm also going to be using some metallic paints. My favourite metallic paints are the Deco Art Extreme Sheen. So to complement my Montmartre colours, I'm going to be using 60 grams of each of these colours. The aquamarine, the amethyst, and the pink tourmaline. Now these are quite thin, and metallics need to be thicker than your other colours. So I'm mixing about 2/3 paint to 1/3 of my pouring medium, just to keep them nice and thick. And then I'm also using Heraldo Gold in the painting as well. Again, I'm mixing that up quite thick, 1:1 paint to pouring medium. Now the pouring medium I'm using today is Floetrol. That gives lots of cells, and I'm looking for a busy painting today. So with most of these colours I used 1:1 Floetrol and paint, although with a couple I may have needed to add a little bit more Floetrol just to get the same consistency across all of my paints. And then I'm using today silicone oil to give me my cells. Now silicone oil and Floetrol together are very reactive, so I'm using less silicone with my Floetrol than I would if I was using my glue and water mix. Okay, so let's get to it. Okay, so these are my colours already mixed up. I'm not going through the mixing and measuring process again today, but if you're not sure how to do that, please check out my last video where I go through all the steps in detail. But the mix that you want to end up with for this kind of pour is something a bit like thick honey. So I'm not sure if you can see it in the video, but if I lift my spoon and drizzle it in a circle, the trail the paint leaves on the surface should last about 3 seconds. If it's shorter than 3 seconds, it's probably too thin for this type of pour. And if it lasts like 4, 5 or 6 seconds, it's probably a bit on the thick side, and your silicone won't be able to come through really well to make cells. Now, the silicone I'm using today will only be in my 3 plain acrylic colours and the gold. I'm not putting in any of my extreme sheen because they're really reactive already and don't really need any extra silicone in them. Now I've got about 160 grams of paint in each cup. Now if it was a glue and water mix, I'd put 1 drop every 30 grams or so. But for the Floetrol mix, I'm only going to put in about 3 drops of silicone. We'll see how that goes. So I'll go 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And 1, 2, 3. And then I need to make sure I mix it in reasonably well. Otherwise I'm going to have great big blobs of silicone making some huge ugly cells and not much else happening. Again, you don't want to over mix it because then it just disperses all through the paint and you'll get just a million itsy bitsy little cells. So that's the purple, and then we've got the magenta. That's not the most exciting thing, watching me mix silicone. It doesn't take that long. Now I've let the paint sit for a little while just to let some bubbles escape, although with the Floetrol, air bubbles aren't as much of an issue as they are with the glue and water mix. So often I do the painting as soon as I've finished mixing up my paints. Yeah, and then the gold. Hopefully the gold won't disappear on me this time. It tends to do that. It's quite heavy and it sinks through the other paints and sits at the bottom. We'll see. You never know what we're going to get today. Just a little bit more for good luck. Okay, now I'll just put those aside, make room for my cups. Now I'm going to be using 4 of these cups today, and I'll fill them more or less the same as each other. Now I'm going to do some colours with white in between them just to separate them a little bit. So I'll start with a bit of purple in each cup. Again, you don't want to make the layers too thin, otherwise everything just blends together. Purple, and then I might put some of this metallic sheen. Now I'll drizzle it over the top rather than pouring it straight in. I'll try to create a layer on the top, so just swishing backwards and forwards a little bit to create a layer on top of the one underneath. Unlike the dirty pour where you just chuck it in and let it all mix together. A little bit of white. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. The white may be a bit thin. We will see what happens. Okay, now I think I'll put a bit of gold. And try to create a layer on the top. I'm not overly fussy, since I want a particularly busy painting anyway. What one will we do next? Maybe some magenta. Go, and then I will do some purple extreme sheen. And then a little bit of white. What haven't I used yet? I might do a bit of gold. I'll use up the gold, I think. You don't have to do each cup identically. There's no rule that says you have to. I generally do. That's probably too much paint, but doesn't matter. We can chuck some off the canvas. I'll just get rid of my cups. I'll wash those up later. There. Always handy to have a cloth lying around just to wipe your hands a little bit. Okay, we'll just put these aside. Now my canvas, as I said, was 35 by 71 centimeters. Made sure it's got a nice drumming sound. If your canvas isn't tight enough, just spray the back with a little bit of water, let it dry, and that should tighten things up. Otherwise, you can use the spacer bars provided with the canvas just to stretch your canvas a bit further. Now, I've made sure my canvas was level so the paint is not going to run off. I'm just double checking with my little leveler there, making sure that it is level, and yes, it is nice and level. Excellent. Now, I hope you can see. I think you can see. Now I'm going to do 2 cups at the back and 2 cups at the front today. So which was my different one? I'll put that in the middle somewhere. I might put this one here, this one at the end, and these 2 about here. Now, as I said in my last video, some people just flip them upside down. I think paint is going to go everywhere when I try that. So I'm using my wall paint scraper tool to flip my cups over. So we'll go flip, and then I just drag it onto the canvas like so, and I don't get paint everywhere. I'll just move to the other side. I can do these ones. Now my cups weren't full, so the paint is going to mix a bit as I flip them anyway. That doesn't matter. I hope it doesn't matter. We'll soon see. There we go. Right. Now, do I have them where I want them? More or less. Now, the idea with flip and drag is to drag your cup backwards as you lift it up so you get a line of paint down your canvas rather than a big round lump at one end. That's the theory. Let's see how it goes. We'll start with this one. Ready? Now don't be tempted to pour remaining paint back onto your canvas. It's going to look yuck. As you can see, I'm getting cells already, but I'm after a super busy looking painting. Let's do this corner. Let's go around the other side to do the other two cups. And you never quite know what you're going to get. As you can see, super busy already. Okay. Now I'm going to gently wiggle the paint backwards and forwards. Not going too fast. Moving my paint down to the other end of the canvas. Now I'm going to do this corner. And I'll do the other corner. And then I'll move my paint in again to the middle. Now it doesn't look as though I'm going to have to torch very much today to bring the silicone up, but I'll do a little bit. It'll pop the air bubbles. Don't get too close, otherwise you will burn your paint. Or get a gazillion cells appearing. Just gently move it backwards and forwards. That'll probably do, I think. Now that's looking nice. And now I'll just go back the other way. Just going backwards and forwards. Now I'm going to get weird looking cells, but that's what I'm after today. I want to do this side and this corner. Okay, now I'll play with my composition. Just move things a bit back this way. Don't like the bottom. I'll move some of that off. I have plenty of paint. As you can see, it's very fluid. So I said it's super bright, psychedelic looking painting today. Okay, now I'll just make sure that all of my sides and corners are covered. If they're not, you can just pick up a bit of paint and just dab it on the sides. I think we're right. Cool. And then I'll get the drips away from underneath my canvas using my tool. So even the drips look nice. It's a shame they're being chucked away. Now the extreme sheen paints is what gave me most of those cells today. They react really well with other acrylic paints and you get great effects with them. But when this dries, the metallics will really come into their own. They'll get really shiny and catch the light. You often don't see it when they're still wet. So you may need to scrape along the bottom of your canvas a couple of times until it stops dripping. Well, I certainly got what I was after today. Very busy, bright, psychedelic look. Now, if I would have used the glue and the water mix, it wouldn't have been nearly as busy as this is. But the Floetrol tends to give you the super busy look. Okay, I'll take these gloves off and then I'll bring you in for a closer look. Okay, so here we are for a closer look. You can see we've got lots of interesting things happening in this painting. I don't mind the cells being out of shape. I like the overall look that it gives the painting, and the mix of colours is just stunning. Well, I think this painting turned out really well. I certainly achieved the very busy psychedelic look that I was aiming for. Now, in a minute, I'm going to tidy everything up and then I'll cover my painting with my food protecting net just to keep the flies off while it's drying. In about a week, I can take the net off, remove the tacks and the tape and put it in my drying rack to cure fully. Now, if you're just starting out with paint pouring and you're not ready yet to tackle a big canvas like this technique is very simple to scale down to a smaller canvas. Just use smaller cups and a fewer number of cups and it will work just as well as a bigger one does. And as you gain in confidence, of course, you can go to a bigger canvas and use more cups that suit the canvas. Now, if you're just starting out with paint pouring and you're not too sure yet about mixing and weighing paints and pouring mediums and things, please check out my last couple of videos. I went through all of those in much more detail and I'm sure you'll learn a lot. I'll put some links to those at the end of this video. Now, I really hope you had a good time today. I certainly did, and I look forward to seeing you again next time. See ya.